Elvis is the reason my movies look the way they do, say Baz Luhrmann and Austin Butler. The director and his star discuss about delivering Elvis Presley to a new generation ahead of their Elvis Presley movie. The sound mix for Baz Luhrmann's upcoming picture, Elvis, is nearing completion. He is the Australian director behind Strictly Ballroom and Moulin Rouge. It's the silver-haired director's first picture since his 2013 adaptation of F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, and it's just weeks away from its international premiere at the Cannes Film Festival. He's relieved to be able to talk after spending so much time researching, shooting, and editing the film. He says, "I've been living this for 5 years. A movie on Elvis Presley would be perfect for Luhrmann." Elvis Presley, the supreme entertainer who blazed through the late 1950s and early 1960s like a supernova, had a big influence on Luhrmann's signature all-singing, all-dancing films, which can be as garish as a rhinestone-studded jumpsuit. "I think all his ridiculous movies, like Blue Hawaii and Jailhouse Rock, which I believed were works of genius, were probably my in for Elvis," he acknowledges. "I realize that's probably why my films look the way they do. Is it a smart idea to put that out there? I'm not sure." John Carpenter cast Kurt Russell in the 1979 TV movie Elvis, barely 2 years after the singer's sad death at the age of 42, and Luhrmann is not the first to take on the king. However, the Australian chose to tell Elvis' life through the perspective of Colonel Tom Parker, played by Tom Hanks, his Bengali-like manager who obsessively controlled his career. Basically, he was a carnival barker - roll up, I've got my carnival act, which is how he saw Elvis, I believe. Exploit, and exploit some more. That's where tragedy awaits. It took months for him to track down his Elvis. Austin Butler, a 30-year-old American who appeared briefly in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, was eventually chosen by Luhrmann. He emphasizes, "I'm not sure I chose Austin. In the end, I did it. I put him through the ringer, I put him to the test in every manner possible. But I'm starting to think he picked me or we picked each other." By sharing a video of himself performing Unchained Melody, Austin piqued Luhrmann's interest. Denzel Washington, who had worked with Butler on a Broadway run of The Iceman Cometh, then called the director. "You have to see him, I've never seen a work ethic like it," he remarked. Butler toiled like a monster to achieve his goal of becoming Elvis Presley. Butler worked with Luhrmann for months before landing the part, singing classics like Hound Dog and Suspicious Minds. He turned down other auditions, and he gave up the chance to attend Cannes in 2019 when the Tarantino film and Jim Jarmusch's zombie comedy The Dead Don't Die, in which he also appeared, were both screening. He recalls, "It was just when I was ready for Elvis' screen exam." Luhrmann continues, "He's been living Elvis for 3 years. I believe that was the only option because he didn't want to impersonate. That is far from the case. Instead, it's a thorough dive into the character, capturing both his on-stage swagger and his more contentious off-stage behavior as popularity overwhelms him. But it's in the quiet moments that he really shines, such as his first Love Me Tender Meet Cute with future wife Priscilla, Olivia de Jonge, or the haunted expression in his eye when they part ways in the back of a limo on the airport tarmac after his years of philandering and pill-popping. Butler must have snuck into Oscar consideration for 2023, given the Academy's fondness for immersive takes on entertainment luminaries, think Marion Cotillard's Edith Piaf or Renée Zellweger's Judy Garland. The concert moments, in particular, are breathtaking, with Luhrmann's camera soaring above Elvis and hundreds of screaming extras. Butler's mesmerizing stage presence, oozing sweaty sex appeal, though, fills the screen. "It's been viewed by some of my friends," Luhrmann says. "It's been viewed by some of my friends," says the narrator. How did he manage to achieve that? For Bohemian Rhapsody, Butler worked with movement instructor Polly Bennett, who taught Rami Malek how to strut like Queen frontman Freddie Mercury. Butler's assignment was made more difficult by the fact that he had to imitate Presley's loo gyrations, as one character describes his hip wiggling and crotch thrusts. To flip himself up on his toes like Presley, he practiced tap, ballet, and contemporary dance. He sings the early years vocally, later scenes include the real singer's voice. Butler was frightened by it all. I felt such a responsibility to Elvis, his family, and all of the people who adore him all around the world. So there was a tremendous amount of pressure, and with that, a tremendous amount of anxiety. He'd wake up at 4 a.m. every day, his heart thumping, trying to psych himself up. But nothing came together until he recorded his first concert sequence, in which Elvis, clothed in black leather, filmed his famed '68 comeback special, a raw TV appearance after years in the doldrums. Butler was nervous, but when he saw female extras blushing and cheering, everything fell into place. He explains, "I started sensing this electric interchange. So I simply let my imagination accept that this is the '68 special, and that I'm doing this right now for this audience. I'm on the verge of losing my job." After that, he went to his dressing room. I looked in the mirror and saw that I was clad in leather and covered in perspiration. And then there came this moment when I realized, okay, I can do this. Elvis seemed to him to be the ideal lens through which to examine the time's cultural, social, and political trends. You can't present the narrative of Elvis Presley without dealing with the subject of racism in America, Luhrmann explains. For the good, the bad, and even the terrible, he's at the center of that issue. Not least, as he learns the news of Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination, he murmurs, "He always spoke the truth," a genuine remark, promises Luhrmann, who spent 18 months working at Graceland, Elvis Presley's Memphis home, interviewing everyone who knew him. The film certainly serves as a reminder that Elvis' love of blues and gospel music helped him unite a country ripped apart by racial discrimination. He meets black musicians who are fighting to be heard, such as B.B. King and Little Richard. However, the film has been panned for omitting Elvis' Republican inclinations, particularly his opposition to the hippie movement and the Black Panther Party, as seen by his controversial 1970 White House encounter with former U.S. President Richard Nixon. Similarly, Luhrmann doesn't go into great detail about Elvis' later years, when he suffered with weight gain and prescription medication addiction. Butler, on the other hand, sympathized with the late Elvis Presley. Because of the physical demands of those concert sequences, he'll be going to the hospital for an MRI scan the day after we chat, more than a year after rapping. "Since I finished, my back has been screwed up." It also explains why Elvis had to take pain medicine at one point since his body was aching. From his early years on the country circuit before Parker discovered him to the show-stopping homes in Vegas, Butler and Luhrmann wanted to delve beyond the obvious. They intended to bring to light a human side of him that had been lost for a long time, such as his sense of humor and compassion. How generous he was and how much he gave out. Butler says how generous he was and how much he gave out. Luhrmann, for one, is on a mission to open the door on this man's life to a new generation. He's turned into cultural wallpaper, and I believe it was my role to peel aside the wallpaper. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more updates.